I came up here and looked at the campus and the setting, and I'm like, there's no reason this school should not be winning the league. Like, they should be in every game. It's a great area, great recruiting base. I felt like it was ready for this school to really take the next step, and I had to take that leap. And it was hard to do. It wasn't easy. I had built a huge relationships. It was like a cry fest when I'm leaving all my guys.
Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we're joined by Jim Clements, the head coach at Kutztown University. In this conversation, Coach Clements shares his ongoing journey in professional growth, his philosophy on building strong programs and coaching staffs, and why staying connected within the coaching community matters. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Follow Inside the Headset on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. We drop new episodes each week, so hit that follow button and never miss a moment. Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Clements.
Coach Clements, how we doing?
Doing great. How you been?
I've been good, man. Been good. I'm excited about hopping on and kind of going through your career here. So let's kind of dive on into this bad boy. We always start the podcast off with when did you know you want to be a part of this great profession? When was that for you?
Yeah, I'm growing up, raised by my mom and my 2 sisters. Sports was my outlet to get with my buddies and my friends. So I always knew that athletics meant a ton to me. So playing baseball, basketball, football, whatever, I knew I wanted to be involved. I knew I wanted to stay involved in athletics and coach. Went to school to be a teacher because all my coaches were teachers. And so I would say, maybe junior, senior year in high school, I knew I wanted to stay involved the best I could, play as far as I could, and then from there really get into coaching. And then while I was at Widener, a couple of my coaches there, talking to them about what my plans were, they thought that would be a good move for me. They felt like I had what it took to be a good teacher and coach. So that's really when it started.
Absolutely. Well, I was before we got on and start recording here, I was asking a little bit about your playing career, and then you had I think it's an awesome opportunity because not too many people in college can say they played both ways. You and the Heisman Trophy winner is about the only 2 people I can really think of.
There's a big gap there. Big gap.
but you did in your first year. You had the opportunity to kind of play both ways, and then finish the rest of your career, I think, at the defensive line position, 3-year starter, recorded 154 career tackles. And, during that time, obviously, you've been a great player, but probably, making your mark as a leader, as somebody that, people on your team can kind of confide in. And so that transitions in 95 to your first opportunity to coach. How did that go down to kind of gain that opportunity as a student assistant there in 1995?
Yeah, well, I was, like I said, I knew I wanted to coach. And all my coaches were teachers in high school. So I in my sophomore year at Widener, I was a history major and I went to be secondary education so I could get my certification to teach. So in 95, I'd stay that extra year and was student teaching at Pepper Middle School in Southwest Philly and Interboro High School. Like, I don't think Pepper's there anymore, but regardless, I would get done teaching and I would just get in my car and haul it down to Widener and just jumped right in with the offensive line and helped out Coach Salmon and just as a student helper, really, which was kind of cool. I wanted to stay involved. I wanted to, I played offensive and defensive line growing up my whole life. And then when I got to Widener, I concentrated more on the defensive side of the ball my sophomore, junior, and senior year. So I did want to get back into the other side of the ball to grow and learn.
Yeah.
And so I did that in 95 and really got the bug, loved it.
So what was the conversation, I guess, like between you and the coaching staff for them to even kind of allow you to come sit in on those meetings as a, offensive line assistant?
Yeah. I mean, they knew that's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Coach Cubitt was our head coach at the time, Bill Cubitt. And Coach been around a ton of places, and Bill Swan was our DC. So I really learned a lot from those guys. And they said, Jim, just you can come to practice anytime you want. You can be involved. You know, you're still on campus. You know, you're always going to be a part of the team. And that's kind of how I treat my guys now.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to get involved and run a drill or be involved, it was kind of like, Jim, you're more than welcome. Take as much of it and do as much of it as you want. And I was more of a fly on the wall, you know, just absorbing and learning and watching other coaches do their thing. But again, getting involved in wanting to teach the younger guys more than the older guys. I mean, we were teammates. So I spent most of my time with the freshmen and sophomore offensive linemen.
Yeah, that's kind of leads me into what was going to be my next question there. Obviously, as a student assistant, especially as you mentioned, you're kind of a fly on the wall there. So you weren't, you know, maybe directly coaching a lot of those guys, but, you know, just a few months ago, we're hanging out in the dorms and, you know, all the crazy stuff you do with your teammates there in college. And then now all of a sudden you're wearing this coaching hat, just maintaining that professionalism and, you know, kind of putting that line in the sand, like, hey, man, I'm coaching now. Was that a hard thing to do, or did you kind of have enough buffer between being a student assistant and a GA that it was never really an issue?
I think everyone has that issue when they first start. Yeah. Especially if they're doing it at a school where they played.
Absolutely.
Because you said there's relationships there. I mean, the locker room is the locker room, and they're your teammates for life. But they all respected me as a player when I was there and as a teammate. So I didn't think the transition was hard at all. It was actually really good. And I got to work with guys that, you know, weren't on the defensive line with me. You know, they were O-line. So I kind of got to grow a little bit more with those guys as well. But yeah, it was some adjustments that I had to make, and I always was the guy that wanted to listen first, you know, and I still brought the juice, man. I brought the energy. I was more. They had to hold me back. I wanted to play, man. I was like, I just got it, you know. I wanted to keep playing, so that hurt. Like the game days were probably the toughest. During the week was great. Game days got a little tough because you just, you know, you wanted to get out there and compete.
Absolutely.
And you knew you hung up the cleats, so now you got to get reality. That's it.
That's right. That young energy is hard to replace, though, man. When you kind of got some of those guys on the staff, it can definitely be infectious to those players. Now, I'm curious how you had the foresight. Now, obviously, you had a little bit of a opportunity to play offensive line for a little bit in college as a freshman, and then you said in high school, that's kind of a little bit more of your background, kind of playing both sides of the fronts. How did you have a foresight to say, man, hey, I was a 3-year starter at the defensive line position rather than student assistant with the D-line where you're already, you know, comfortable to go and get some of that exposure? Like, you know, that's a huge kind of career move, you know, to make early on. A lot of times I get coaches on here that give young people advice like, hey, man, coach as many different positions as early as you can, and you jump right into that opportunity. How did you have that foresight?
I think it was a suggestion as well from our head coach.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like, Jim, this would benefit you. This will help you grow, you know. And I agreed, you know. And in the following year, I went to a high school and I was coaching the O-line. So it got my, you know, they knew I wanted to coach it, be it on one side of the ball or the other. They felt it would be good for me to jump on the O-line early so I could at least start to build that foundation. Yeah. If I got the opportunity to coach the O-line in the future. So I was really happy I did that. But yeah, it was a suggestion from Coach Cubitt.
Yeah, and so and you look at your career, your defense to kind of rest away, but still a good opportunity for you to kind of go get out your comfort zone, probably go learn how to learn a little bit, you know, because obviously it would have been probably a little more natural for you to do D-line. You probably could have ran an individual without too much prep time, but obviously, you know, you go and get yourself in that position, you learn how to learn a little bit. So you go in 96 and you go and coach high school ball, right? There locally. Mm-hmm. So once again, how did that opportunity kind of come about? And obviously it was short lived before you got back in the college deal, but we'll, you know, talk about that year two for us.
Again, that was connections, right? It was my old high school where I played at.
Oh, okay.
And you know, one of the smallest public schools in the state of Pennsylvania to suit a football team. We were single A. And so I had a really good rapport with my head coach, Rich Stetler, and he brought me back. And at that point, I was a defensive coordinator, fresh out of college, but I also coached the offensive line. ran the weight room,
Yeah.
Did the laundry, I had 800 hats,
Right.
but really it was more entrenched in the defense, but I was also coaching the O-line. And coming from a small school like that, we had to really break up our practices. Like, we never had scout teams or ones. It was, we practice offense for this hour. So, you're not coaching defense, you're coaching offense. So we all had to coach on both sides of the ball because we were such a small team, but you grew as a coach. Like, you were doing special teams, you were involved in a lot of things. So it was a great opportunity for me to give back to my high school, to learn from guys that I really respected. But again, to get in different phases of the game. And I really enjoyed it, but I really wanted to coach that college age athlete. I was doing it, but when I had the opportunity to go back, I jumped at that opportunity because I knew that's where I wanted to be.
So how did that opportunity arise to return back as a graduate assistant there in 97?
Yeah, I was, at the time, I was delivering pizza. I was, working a golf course, cutting greens. I was tending bar. I was running the weight room. I was a long-term stuff. I had all these jobs trying to get out of mom's house, but I couldn't find a teaching job. They were not hiring at that time in mid-90s, early 90s. Nowadays, they're giving those jobs away like Tic Tacs. I tell the guys, if you get an education now, you're going to graduate and get placed really easily. Back then, it was tougher.
Yeah.
So actually, it was funny. Well, I went out to Vegas for a couple months to try to get involved out there. My wife, she wasn't my wife then, but she was out at grad school out there and spent some time out there and realized that I wasn't going to find anything out there in the teaching field. So there was a coaching change at Widener. Bill Cubitt left to go to Western Michigan, and Billy Swan, my DC, got the head job. So Bill, as soon as that happened, we got on the phone and he said, "Jim, come on out. I want you back to be my graduate assistant." So I went out there and started my master's degree in secondary ed. And I was in the right place at the right time. We had a change. There was a full-time coach, a good friend of mine that moved on, which opened up a full-time job. And Coach Swan, bless his heart, he gave me my first opportunity to be a full-time coach. And I took those reins and ran with it.
Yeah.
And was super excited to be back at my alma mater. That was awesome.
Now, I love to keep this thing chronological, but I got to push the timeout button real fast. I always think it's cool especially when I can look at you and say, Kutztown all-time wins leader, 90 and 29, and I got a long list of accolades that you kind of achieved at Kutztown, and then you just early in that career, especially around that time frame that you're kind of in, where man, it was like delivering pizzas. It was like just trying to make ends meet. Early on, and you're taking some tough jobs. You're wearing 1,000 hats, and you're doing all that kind of stuff. And it's like at that moment, I bet you had. I mean, obviously, you had no clue that you had an opportunity to be sitting there running a program as successfully as you ran. I just always think that's super cool to kind of look at as we tell these stories here. But so you get the call back, and did you say Las Vegas? You were out in Vegas?
Yeah, my wife Sue, she was getting her master's in school psych from UNLV.
Okay.
So, like I said, I had all these jobs. I was running around. I couldn't find a full-time teaching job. So I said, let me go out there and see if there was something out there.
Right.
And a lot of union, there was some dead ends out there as well. I actually tried to get in with UNLV as maybe a GA or just a helper. But I really look back at that time and say, you know what, I should have been a little more aggressive. I should have went up there, knocked on the door,
right.
and say, hey, I'll do whatever. I'll move bags. I'm out here. Use me. I don't need any money. I just want an opportunity to learn and grow.
Right.
We're thinking, but then when that opportunity came, I got the call to go back. I mean, it was making like $100 a month.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter.
Right.
I was excited to go back. So yeah, that's when I went out to Vegas. It was kind of crossroads for me. And then when that change happened, I went right back home and took care of that. Went after that opportunity that I got.
Well, you kind of interject girlfriend at the time, but wife now, into the story. And so anytime Coach does that, I love to kind of pounce on that. So obviously you made a big change to even be out west for that little bit of time. How does that conversation go, right? Because obviously you were looking for an opportunity to coach college ball. You get it. They're back at Widener, back on the East Coast. what is the conversation like with wife? Is she done with grad school, or you're like, hey, I'm cutting out early? How did that go down?
No, she totally understood. She was all about it. So she knew that was an opportunity that would help me down the road.
Yeah.
She still had another year, a year and a half left in her degree.
Okay.
And then she went on to get her doctorate at TCOM. So she was, and then when I went back to Widener, and she moved back and started working in Philly as a school psychologist in the Philadelphia Public School. So it was good. We were back together again. And
yeah.
That long-term relationship's a little bit tough first, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with coaches, nowadays it's like, you have an opportunity to get a job and you can't bring your family with you right away. That's a real thing. Like that's a serious conversation that you have to have. And at the time, fortunately for us, we weren't even married. We were just no kids, anything like that. We were just boyfriend, girlfriend thing. But
yeah,
it was tough to leave, but she came back and we're all good.
All good. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll kick my cupboard.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I do think it's important to interject this, especially like I said, as young coaches listen to this thing, man. I mean, these conversations are real. I mean, I was a school teacher here in Waco, Texas, in coaching high school ball, and all of a sudden I take a graduate assistant position. My wife wasn't ready for me to take that, and it was, I'm happy it all worked out, but it was some conversations and all that kind of stuff, and some preparation for what the profession was going to kind of bring to us. And so I appreciate you sharing that. So you get there, obviously you rock the house as a graduate assistant in 97, get promoted to a full-time defensive line, linebackers, special teams between 98 and 2002. Being a full-time coach, and I guess you had a lot of experience there that 1 year you were in high school, but I mean, this is a fast kind of career trajectory to have that much responsibility, 3 years out of plan, to be the full-time D-line coach, to move the linebackers, special teams. How did you grow? Like, where did you take the time to sharpen your tools as Coach Clements and, make sure that you were giving your best to those student athletes as a 25, 26-year-old, full-time coach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it's surrounding yourself with good people. Coach One had an unbelievable coaching staff. And I was a young guy on the totem pole there. So you got to learn a lot from some really good former high school coaches that were doing it forever, that were working with Coach. I mean, Phil was a winner. I mean, we went to the Final Four, Final Eight. I don't think we ever had a losing season. We had some really good players. So learning from that staff as much as I could. And then going to the convention, having that opportunity to go to the convention where, they helped pay for it, which was awesome. We're flying down to San Antonio, New Orleans, Orlando, Nashville, wherever we were going, and just sitting in on as many meetings as I could, taking notes. I was hopping on the elevator with Coach Bowden. I see Coach Bowden. I'm going to follow him around a little bit in the lobby.
Right.
Jump on that elevator, Coach Paterno.
Right.
All those guys, and in the 90s, and then just following that trajectory, trying to learn from those guys. Some of the best talks, and then clinicking in the area. There was always a good clinic going on at Pennsylvania High School Coaches Association, or Glacier Clinics, whatever was going on, and then visiting with staffs and have an opportunity to. We changed the defense in 97. We went from like a 4-down to a 3-down, where we spent some time out in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. That was pretty cool. Yeah. So when you have people that are going to open their doors and share some information with you, you got to be excited to go do that and learn. And I'm still doing it now. I'm 52 years old, and there's still a lot to learn. Obviously,
absolutely.
The technology is awesome. Like you can Zoom with guys, and Lawrence First and Goal, all the things that they're doing with all their coaching clinics that they do, and to get involved in that. It's to be a young coach now, you have so much material and so much opportunity to get at your fingertips that we didn't have in the early 90s. So we had to really, get in a car and go drive up to the next school and talk and get on the chalkboard and just learn the best that you can.
Absolutely. Now, it's kind of ties in a little bit to you and your current role, as I know you're constantly hiring GAs. You guys have had a lot of success. Sometimes with success comes departure on your staff for guys taking good jobs, and so hiring new people. Now, taking that kind of preface there and putting it on to this next question, as I mentioned, 98, 2000, I'll go ahead and say 2003, you had the opportunity to kind of continuously get promoted within the program. And now in real time, you go and you identify these coaches on your staffs that are kind of doing some of the same deals, or, guys that come in and interview. What are some of those characteristics that you were displaying that you think allow for you to have that flexibility to come and kind of hop in and out these jobs and to build the trust amongst the head coach for him to say, he's going to run our special teams, he's going to, be our new DC. What were some of those characteristics that you were showing and that you also look for?
Detail, teachers. Like the first thing I look for is teaching. And I think our coaching staff there saw the relationships that I would build with our players and how I separated that. And I was their coach first, always. Yeah. But there was a relationship there and a belief that I was putting them in the right spots. And then and being able to get in front of a group and explain how we do it in a way where everyone can learn at the same pace, because not everyone learns the same way. So I think you got to be a really good teacher, how you present it, how you communicate. Accountability is big. So when we're interviewing coaches to our staff, if it's a restricted earnings, a part-time job, a graduate assistantship, a coordinator spot, a full-time spot, those are the things that we're looking for. Guys that can really teach. Yeah. Guys that are willing to grow continuously. Guys that are good communicators with the players. They're going to motivate and always put the players first. I'm always been the players first guy. That's the lifeline of any football program is the talent that you have. Right. But the guys that you bring into your program, they've got to fit into the culture. You don't want to bring a guy in that's going to, stir the apple cart, someone that's really all about the kids and is going to criticize the performance, not the performer. Guys that are in it for the right reasons. Guys that can recruit, guys that can sell the program, guys that can go out, and that's a big part of it, right? Recruiting is huge. You got to make sure you're bringing in the right guys. Guys that are going to be good teammates, guys that are going to be holding their teammates accountable, guys that love ball. Yeah. Right? So that's really important. And I want guys that are going to, not just be a fly on the wall like I was back in 95. I want guys to ask questions, and I want guys to bring something to the table. I'm not a micromanager, so I want guys to learn and grow, and I want to learn from them just as much as they want to learn from me. Right. So we really have that in our program here in our staff. We really have that close-knit group where we're all in it for the right reasons, and there's not a lot of egos. I mean, check your ego at the door, man. We're all in this thing. I may be the head coach, but we're equal, man. We're walking side by side. This is our group, and I empower our guys to do that, and I think that helps with continuity. Guys want to work for a coach that has that mentality, and lets them do their job because they're good at it.
Yeah, amen. That's why you brought me here, right? Let me come. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's real. Now, let's go to 2003. You get the opportunity to be a defense coordinator there at your alma mater. First time kind of doing it. Obviously, your career throughout this whole time is just kind of skyrocketing in the upward trajectory, and it continues to do so right into your head job here. And that's the easy part. Those are the easy questions to ask. Let me ask you a tough question. What were some of the difficulties, being a first-time defensive coordinator? How old are you at that point in time? Probably, 29, 30? Still relatively young guy in a profession. What kind of lumps did you take, in those first couple games, or even, leading up into it, maybe that you weren't prepared for as a coordinator?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, total transparency here. Dave Wood, Coach Wood, and I worked with the defense at Widener under Coach Swan, and Bill was the offensive guy, the defense coordinator for me. He knew both sides of the ball, but he was doing the offense. So Dave was the DC, and I was his right-hand man, and we worked it together. Bill left to go to Westchester. I tried to get the head job at Widener. They told me I was too young. But Dave went for it, and thank goodness they hired Dave, which was great because I was safe. And Billy couldn't bring any of us with him to Westchester. Oh, wow. different time, different league. We're all unionized in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, so they weren't buying anybody out of contract. So he kind of went solo, and he was able to take some part-time guys. But I had a great opportunity, right? Dave got the job. I was promoted as assistant head coach, defensive coordinator. So things didn't really change for us. Like we were still working it, doing it together. I was still coaching, but on game day, I didn't call it. Okay. You know, Dave called it. Dave's his first time as a head coach. He's like, I'm not giving this up. And I don't blame him, you know, but I was there with him really in support. But there was times during that year that was a little tough. You know, we're taking care of some teams, and you would think, hey, you know, hey, Jim, why don't you call the fourth quarter or something like that? And he never gave it up. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall that if I really wanted to do it and own it myself, I probably needed to move on. And Delaware Valley College at the time, one of my former roommates was the head coach there, G.A. Mangus, a great guy, a good friend of mine. So, you know, I was thinking about going up there at that point, but I said, you know, I got to stay with Dave in his first year because I didn't want to leave him high and dry. Mm-hmm. So I stayed with Dave, and then the following year I went up to Del Val because I knew I would have total control of the defense, and it was going to be my deal. And they were struggling. They were scoring points on everybody, but they couldn't stop a cold. So it was a good fit for me. That's where I really grew as a coach. Yeah. So where I went to Del Val, and we were 24-2 in our first 2 years there. Right. And we were doing a great job. And that's when I really started to grow as a defensive coordinator, and that's when it got real for me. Yeah. So, now I'm calling the ball plays. Now it's getting real, you know. Right. Yeah. So I guess the question probably applies a little bit more there at that spot when you were truly calling it. But before we get to Delaware Valley, let me just ask the last question. And so in 2003, I don't know if frustration is the word. Definitely don't want to put words in your mouth, but you know, obviously you're doing a lot of the prep. I would assume you're doing a lot of the game plan, and you know, as you would at any position coach, probably from a defensive coordinator position, but you're just not getting the call that come Saturdays. In hindsight, was that beneficial to kind of be that like in the weeds as a coordinator, but just not calling and just kind of being able to say, maybe I would have did that. Oh, maybe I wouldn't have did that. Not necessarily have to have the consequences of doing it. Was that advantageous for you at all? Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cause I was still growing too. Yeah. Right. I was still learning, and Dave was a really sharp mind, defensive guy. And I would totally respect Dave Wood. Yeah. And so for me, it was about just let me learn as much as I can and see. But I learned from that too. Like there's times here where I was calling it, and I have an assistant, and I say, hey, you got the fourth quarter, and just learning from like, I wish I would have had a couple opportunities while I was there. Yeah. To be thrown in the fire, which I did. I mean, we had JV teams, so I was calling defense for our JV team for a bunch of years. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, so that's the nice thing in Division III. There's still that opportunity. You got such big rosters that you may play like 4 or 5 JV games a year against similar D3 schools, or even a University of Penn freshman group or Lehigh or wherever at that time. And those were great learning experiences where we were calling it at that point with the freshmen, which was great. That was fun. That was enjoyable. The playbook was a little bit more condensed. You can imagine, right? You got a bunch of younger guys, but so I had an opportunity to call it in '96 in high school and then JV games, but to be thrown into it in '03, I can totally understand where our head coach at the time was coming from. Mm-hmm. Totally respected the decision, and if I was in his shoes, I would have probably done the same thing. Right. But yeah, it was a great opportunity for me to continually follow Dave to see why we did things. What's the why behind it? And there was always open conversations with that, which helped me grow and learn. Right. And obviously, once again, a poor job on my homework there. I didn't realize you guys had the JV opportunity there. We've had a few coaches here as of recent where that's been the case. It's all been kind of that East Coast Division III thing, which I think is phenomenal because, I mean, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but like if you mess up, not who cares, but it's just a little bit more leeway. It's not as much of the consequences if you're not doing a great job at it. You really get to get out there and get your feet wet and grow. It's a great, like you said, it's awesome for the young coaches, and it's great for the players.
Yeah,
no
question. Yeah,
they're not just a practice player now. They know they're getting in and they're playing legitimate and they're competing when it matters. So yeah, when you have the roster sizes that we had, it really helped with retention and it really helped with developing and growing kids. You could see a kid, maybe playing tight end in JV, and they're like, wait a minute, like this kid could be a defensive end, and then get those reps at that level,
right?
And next thing you know, he's rushing the quarterback on Saturday.
Yeah, amen.
So it was really a cool opportunity for the staff and for the kids.
Is that still going at all? Like, is anybody doing that still? The JV leagues? Yeah,
some of in our area, in the Pennsylvania area, there are some teams that they'll still have those JV games.
Okay.
We don't do it at Division II. We have roster limits. The schools that don't have those limits, they're able to do that.
They're able to do that. Okay. Well,
that's a real thing.
That's huge for coaches, man. I mean, like you said, huge for players as well. But I mean, just to be able to get that exposure as a young coach is phenomenal. Now, let's go ahead and hop back at Delaware Valley. So now you're calling it, right? You're doing a bunch of the same stuff, but you actually get an opportunity to call it. And you guys are absolutely on fire in those first 2 years, which ultimately leads to you being the head coach / defensive coordinator there in 2006. What was that whirlwind like to be able to kind of come in with your buddy and kind of get that thing going there at Delaware Valley that ultimately into you've been named the head coach?
It was an awesome experience. I got an opportunity to be around a lot of really good coaches. We were in the same league too. Widener and Del Valle are in the same league, so it kind of got a little. We play for the Keystone Cup, so it got a little. That Widener Del Valle game meant a lot to me.
Yeah,
I was involved in that game from '91 until 2013. So yeah, that was kind of cool. But going there and getting the freedom to run the defense and to work with the staff that was in place and really coaching and just sharing ideas and, hey, this is what I want to do. Who's the best kid for here? They did a great job in regards to recruiting. We had a lot of really good players on defense. I think I just put a little more structure into it and really got those guys playing fast and at a high level. But it was exciting. We had some really good players, and Del Valle was such a great place. There's a lot of different things we had to do. I mean, we're cooking hot dogs and hamburgers before the game. Living the D3 life. Yeah. Buses are rolling in. Our opponents are rolling in. We're out there flipping burgers.
Let me take the apron off and get my call
off
sheet.
And get put on the hat, the visor, and the whistle. Let's ready to go. And it's like I remember talking to coaches like, y'all making hamburgers before the game. You guys are like 12-1. What gives? I'm like, yo, man. We gotta raise some money to get some travel suits. I mean, we gotta handle concession stands, but it was classic. I mean, we could write a book about it. It was a great place. Awesome opportunity, great kids, and was fortunate, like you said, and then being there for those 2 years where we had such a successful turnaround to make them relevant. Like they hadn't won a championship in 23 years. Mm. So taking those 2 years and really two of the best years that we've had. And then when Coach Mangus goes to work for Coach Stock down at Middle Tennessee State, he goes down to be the OC at Middle. I was in the right place at the right time and had an opportunity to become the head coach there. It was exciting for me and my family. And I didn't care. They're like, I met with the president. It was easy. He's like, Jim, you're interested? I'm like, I didn't ask about anything. Where do I sign? I'm good. I don't care. I'm like, I'm in. If you got the guy, keep this thing rolling. So yeah, that was a really big opportunity. And President Lamer at the time, thankful that he gave me that opportunity.
Something that's really interesting there is you kind of look at your career. That GA opportunity that popped up for you was a former coach, right? The guy that you played under. He calls you to come back out from Las Vegas in '97. In 2003, this is your defensive coordinator when you played or that you worked with.
GA and I coached together at Widener.
Coached together at Widener, right? So this is a previous relationship. And then you have this teammate, all right? So I think a lot of young coaches, they see the opportunities of, like you said, been at the AFCA convention, seeing Coach Bowden, seeing those guys that already have the jobs. And I think a lot of people really want to network up. But I had a guy, Brian Metz. He's on, I think he went over to Charlotte, but he was at Ohio for a long time. He popped on the podcast and he was talking about networking out. And that term has always kind of stuck with me, like networking within your peer group, right? Building those relationships. So you had a guy that you played with that goes and gets this head coach and opportunity. How was that networking out deal where you had, I'm sure you two guys weren't the only coaches from that staff, but those young guys that are kind of rising through profession, staying in contact to even allow for you to end up at Delaware Valley?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. To be honest with you, I probably could have and should have done a better job networking when I was younger. I was the guy that, I wasn't always worried about like finding the next job. I was just, wherever my feet are, I'm going to kill it. And I'm like going to recruit the next best quarterback. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
That kind of was my mentality, where you'll see some guys they're always chasing the next thing. So networking is important. Like, I probably rely more on my networking to talk about ball.
Yeah.
Hey, what's the situation? Hey, what would you do with this situation? Like, I've got guys that worked or played for me that are head coaches now that call me for advice, and I call them, all the time as well. Or I'll call one of my former coaches for advice, more advice than it is about, the next opportunity. But I totally get it. Like, it's a relationship business. Like, if you have it in and people know your character and know your work ethic and know how you're going to treat kids, it makes it so much easier to hire those guys because you've been there and you've done that. So it's a huge part of the business. So yeah, networking to me is big. When I was younger, I probably didn't concentrate on it as much as I should have. Where when I have young coaches on my staff, I reiterate to them all the time about the importance of it.
Yeah.
And how you need to network and how you need to go meet with people in the spring and get yourself out there to learn and grow. But it puts a name to a face. And if there's something in the future that opens for you, hey, you might get an interview. Right, you might be able to go out there and do it. And I'm always like, hey, promote our guys. I want them to reach their goals. I want them to do what's best for them. I'm never burning bridges. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and probably, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, where you're having great success, or you're probably seeing guys leave all the time, and just keeping those relationships alive is huge, not just for you, but also probably more for them, because I know sometimes it's difficult to leave a good situation and a good coach. But now let's get back to 2006 to 13 as the head coach defensive coordinator there at Delaware Valley. I'm going to brag on you real quick. All-time wins leader there, 66-24, 4 times Middle Atlantic Conference champs, 3 Division III playoff, second-round appearances, 3-time Mid-Atlantic Conference Coach of the Year, 2010 AFCA Division III Region II Regional Coach of the Year. I mean, golly, just a mouthful, especially like if I read that, that's an awesome career in itself. But to say, hey, prior to us kind of getting this thing going, this probably was a good job, but the success wasn't really showing up. When you take over as the head coach for the first time and you're trying to find your identity, and so much, you guys had turned it around. How do you put your own stamp on it, but without giving up too much of kind of what y'all built in those first 2 years as the DC?
Yeah, it's a relationship thing, right? It's just I had such a great relationship with a lot of the players that played for us, mainly on the defensive side of the ball. I had relationships with the whole team, but I was the DC. Like, I was the head coach of the defense. That was my deal. And then to get those offensive guys to trust in me, and to understand, like, hey, this isn't slowing down. Like, we're going to continue to grow. We graduated a ton of really good players. But yeah, I thought, to be honest, be myself. I'm not going to change who I am because I went from DC to head coach.
Right.
I'm still the same Coach Clements, man.
Yeah.
I'm just got a different hat. I'm not going to try to be something that I'm not. I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to be genuine. I'm going to care about the guys. We're going to work hard. And I'm going to surround myself with great people. We lost a couple guys on staff. Obviously, Coach Mangus was an awesome play caller, a great offensive mind. And we had to replace him. And I hired Duke Greco, as my OC. Duke was on staff, as a part-time coach. And I interviewed him. I interviewed one guy to be my OC, and it was Duke. And I was like, Duke, you got it, man. I want you here. I want you to be a part of this thing. And it's funny, you had said that I was the all-time winningest coach there. I was when I left, but I'm no longer am now.
Oh, okay. That's changed a little bit. I can.
Well, hell yeah, man. We're good. We're good. And Duke Greco, Duke and I, we worked together up until 13. And then one of the reasons, going from Del Valle to Kutztown, I wanted to make sure that those guys were taken care of. And Duke became the head coach. And
wow. He's
now the all-time winningest coach in Del Valle history. But I'm thankful to be a part of the turnaround there.
Yeah.
From 2004 to where they're at now. The head coach there played quarterback for me. He was my freshman quarterback in 2006. That started for me. And he's leading the charge there now. So it's just a special place. So yeah, it is. It was a good spot.
There's something interesting in that story there that I would love to do some digging on and potentially get him on a podcast, because a part-time coach, you promote him to the OC without interviewing anybody else. What was it that you saw in him? Because I mean, that's a kind of a big leap there. What did you see from him that let you know he was the guy, and ultimately ends up with all the success that he's been able to generate?
First of all, he's such a good person.
Yeah.
Right. And he can relate to everybody. He's just a really good teacher. He was our best recruiter. I felt he was. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had a connection recruiting, had really good connections in the tri-state area. But I just knew he would be perfect because he had a great demeanor, hard worker, former quarterback.
Yeah.
I felt good with him running the show. Our offensive line coach was back. Our receiver coach was back. So we had a lot of the same guys back that already had a relationship with Duke.
Yeah. And
I knew he was ready for it, and he did. He did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
It's funny because now Duke's coaching at Westchester. So now we play each other now. Yeah. Yeah. We got a pretty cool little thing going. He's doing a great job. But yeah, he was I always say that was my first big hire as the head coach for the first time, and I hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Huge. Yeah. That's huge to be able to do that early on. Well, obviously you were kind of able to generate a lot of success there, as I read about earlier, which ultimately leads to an opportunity there where you presently are here in Kutztown in 2014. Kutztown, excuse me. How did that opportunity come about once again? Step up to the Division II level and to a very good program.
The job opened in 2013. Raymond Monica, who did a great job here at KU, won a PSAC in 2011. Which was the first time ever they won the league title. He stayed on one more year, and he ended up taking a job at Arkansas Tech. And I interviewed for the job then, 13, and I didn't get it. They promoted from within, which I totally understand and can respect because they were doing well. And Drew Fulmer did a great job offensively, and Drew took over as the head coach in 13. So I kind of had interviewed up here once prior. And then Drew, he went to go to Lehigh the next year. So I'd already had an interview up here. I spent time with the committee. They quickly called me back to come back up and go through the process again. And I absolutely jumped in the process again. And I didn't have to move, Mario. I didn't have to move my family. My wife's got a great job. My kids are in a good school district. I just had to drive a different direction. So it's funny, the three schools I've been at are all within 30 miles of each other. So I'm really got strong roots in this area. Didn't have to move. That was a big piece of it for me. But I did want to have that challenge. I wanted to get into this conference. Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference is an awesome conference.
Yep.
Delaware Valley, Widener private school, very expensive. Very, kids loaning money out. Just, it's expensive. Like the recruiting part of it meant a lot to me. I wanted to be able to take care of families and they could graduate with a great degree, play great football, and then not be in such huge debt. That meant something to me. Like it was important. And I came up here and looked at the campus and the setting, and I'm like, there's no reason this school should not be winning the league. Like, they should be in every game. It's a great area, great recruiting base. You know, I felt like it was ready for this school to really take the next step, and I had to take that leap. And it was hard to do. It wasn't easy. You know, I had built a huge relationships. You know, it was like a cry fest when I'm leaving all my guys.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take anyone with me, right? Because, again,
same deal.
it was you guys.
Okay.
I came by myself. I got here 2 days before spring ball started. In March 24th was my first day here at Kutztown. And I took a leap of faith, and I had some buyer's remorse in the beginning, like, I'm being honest. And then it started to grow on me, and I started to feel better, and this place has been great to me. Like, so I've been really fortunate here.
You know, so one of the unique things that is popping up here, and I mean, we're probably 300, 400 podcasts in, and I've never heard of this situation where you can't, you know, this union situation there in that area. And that's typically what you see in the profession, right? I get a new job as a head ball coach. I might not bring my whole staff, but I'm bringing 3 or 4 guys I know can come help me implement the culture and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that really changes up your first couple months there on campus as you're trying to put a staff together. What was your approach to kind of build a staff that you felt comfortable with in helping you kind of deliver what you wanted to deliver there?
Yeah, it was a total evaluation on the job eval, like getting here 2 days before spring ball.
Yeah.
It was funny. Ross Pennypacker, great coach. He's defense coordinator at Villanova. Ross was here. Like, he always says the best thing he did was his recruiting pitch to keep the 4-2-5. Because I'm an odd guy. He's odd 3-4 days. Now we reduced the front, play some 4 down. But I came in here and I'm sitting down and I'm starting to go over everything with Ross, and his head's going, we got camp in 2 days. And I was like, look, I don't want everyone in this program to change because of me. Huh. I'm going to sit back, evaluate. I'll learn what you guys are doing. I'll learn how you're doing it. We'll make some adjustments. And to me, it was about, I just want to see how these guys coach on the field, how they react with the players, how their meetings are, you know, how they treat the kids. That meant something to me, you know, and I was fortunate. We had some really good coaches here. You know, there were some things that, you know, we had to change, but you only got to tell a guy once or twice, and then he's on board and they get it. So, I mean, I was blessed. I had a good group, but I couldn't change them. You know, they weren't buying any contracts out. I couldn't bring the guys with me. So I really had to learn on the go. Yeah. You know, and then leaving Del Valle, the nice thing was, like, I knew that they were all safe. I knew that those guys had a job.
They were good.
No one was getting fired. No one was coming in. And, like, I would not have come to Kutztown if that wasn't going to be the case. Like, I had to make sure that our coaches were going to be okay. So coming to KU really was evaluating the players, evaluate the coaches, and then really start to implement the plan of our culture and how we were going to do things. And I was their 3rd head coach in 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they really had to understand that, like, I wanted to be there. Like, this was important to me. Like, I'm super proud to be your head coach.
Yeah. Like,
I can't wait to get this thing rolling with you guys. Like, I had to get that trust and build that. Now, some of the guys I recruited, I recruited some of these guys. I lost to Kutztown on them.
Yeah.
But I knew a lot of the guys that were here. So it meant a lot to me to make sure that I was going to bring them some stability, and I was going to bring the fun to football. You know, we were going to win.
Yeah. Well, I got to get to the bottom of this question here. So you're an odd front guy. You run the 4-2 just to kind of get through spring, evaluate. You know, as you mentioned, did you stick with the 4-2? Did they sell you on it over that course of time, or are you kind of back and forth now, or where are you at now on that?
We're a 4 down group, but we were running under front out of the 3 down. So
you were kind of,
that overhang.
Yeah.
So it's all the same. It's just how you fit in the puzzle together.
I got you.
They'll call it a 4-2-5. When I got here, I'm like, well, hold on. use this as a 4-3 because that nickel ain't a nickel.
Right.
When we go nickel, we're bringing a corner in. So this Rover that you got out there is not a safety. He's a linebacker. But if you got to recruit him that way, I get it.
Yeah.
But no, it was learning a little bit of new things, but it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
You're teaching, block destruction the same way, gap integrity.
Yeah.
Your tackling drills. It's really just getting these guys fundamentally sound, and we're going to build our base there and make sure they understand how important it is. But yeah, Ross did a great job with the defense. I've had some good coaches here.
Well, yeah, this is an interesting part because it's kind of been a little bit of the flavor of the conversation today. A little bit. It was there, Widener in 03, right? DC gets promoted to head coach, but he keeps that responsibility there. When you're head coach there at Delaware Valley, you're the head coach / DC.
Yep. I'm calling everything. Yeah.
You're calling it here at KU too?
No, at Del Val I did.
Okay. But so when you get to KU, how did you make that transition to say, hey, I'm not going to call it this time?
Yeah, well, I had to learn what they were doing, and how they were talking. They had to change some of the coverage stuff that I totally disagreed with, some things they were doing, some of the robber stuff. But we were more of an open middle base, quarters base. And we were tinkering, getting some cover 3 and 2 in there. But everything that I'd like to do, we've changed and formed into what we do. So to me, where we're at with our amount of scholarships and the types of kids that we can go out and get, we've got to have curveballs and different change-ups. We've got to change up what we do on defense. We can't go out there every week and be the same. We're going to get beat. We've got to really have flexibility to do a lot of things and then keep it stupid simple for the guys.
Yeah. Which
is the tough part, right? But so Ross was calling it. We were in on all that stuff. Obviously as a head coach, there's things where, hey, no, I think we need to do this here in the red zone, or we need to. But again, I got a really good idea of what Ross was during the spring and how he went about his job, and I trusted him. I trusted that he was going to do it, and he did it. And he's doing it at Villanova, doing a great job there too, right? And then when he left, it enabled me to hire a full-time O-line coach. We didn't have a full-time O-line coach, right? So I had to change some things. We only had 3 full-time. I had myself and 3 full-time coaches, where in our league, you're allowed to have 4 full-time coaches with the head coach. So it took me, I got here in 2014, I was asking for that. It took me till 21 until they actually gave me that in 22.
Golly.
So I had to move some things around. So there's 3 guys on offense and then me on defense. And then my part-time guys were defensive guys. I had a coordinator who was with me. We were doing it all, but I was still calling it.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I'm like, you know what? That's what I was telling you earlier. I was like, hey, Eric, you got the 4th quarter. Hey, guys, I'm calling it. I'm like, yeah, you're calling it. I remember after the game, he's like, Coach, I wish you would have given me a heads up. That I'm like, you're like the backup quarterback, son. Like, you got to be ready to go.
You got to be ready to go.
I could go on the sideline. You got to be ready. So he really was thankful, in the end. But you got to give your coaches those opportunities.
Amen. Yeah.
Well, and then he ends up getting a DC job at Limestone now. So it was a good experience for him, and he could continue to grow and get better. And then I brought in Mike St. Germain from Virginia Military, and he was awesome. And again, Mike's wanted to call. I was like, look, I have to have a trust in order for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He was here. It took me a couple weeks. So I'm like, you got it, man. And now he's the DC at Lafayette, right? So these guys are getting chances and growing, and we're changing, right? I'm taking stuff that they did at Virginia, like the 3-down stuff, some of the different concepts that they did, and we're learning and growing with each other and really building our defense around what we have personnel-wise. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of really great coaches that get that and can.
Yeah, what's really cool, just listening to you talk here, is 2006 to present, you've had the opportunity to be a head ball coach, which is tough in itself. I mean, at any level to maintain that position for that long. But Man, you got a tree, man. You got guys all over kind of doing some good jobs at some different places. Like, do you ever get the opportunity, on a bus ride back after a game to kind of scroll through and just look at all your guys and pull those scores up and be like, okay.
You got it. That's my deal, right? We usually tag, we go one, we win that, we go 1-0. I usually put that out on Twitter. Hey, 1-0, go KU type of deal.
Yeah.
And then I'm on there. I'm looking at King's College.
Yeah.
The new head coach, they played left tackle for me at Del Val. The head coach at Widener, he played tight end for me at Del Val. The head coach at Del Val was my quarterback. Westchester, obviously, they're in our league. I know what they're doing, but the head coach
right.
there was on my staff. He's awesome. We're watching Villanova's scores. We're watching Lafayette scores. Matty Barnes, he's out middle Mississippi State running, doing the defense down there. Matt was my running back coach for me one year.
Wow.
And talking about trajectory, there's a guy that, he was at Maryland, Ohio State, Florida, Michigan, West Virginia, Wesleyan to start. But he called me up one time. He's like, Coach, he's recruiting in the Northeast when he's at Ohio State. And he's like, Coach, I just wanted to thank you for giving me that opportunity. And that was awesome. I was like, damn, Matt,
that's cool.
You're killing it. You're the man. It was exciting. So not that, he's an unbelievable coach too. But I learned a lot from him, and it's cool. When you see guys that are still doing it and they're out there and they're making an impact on the kids, it's awesome.
It's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, Coach, I appreciate an hour of your time as a head ball coach. I know how much that's how valuable that is. But let me brag on you real quick here, and then ask you about your recent award winning all-time lead, KU's all-time wins leader. That's intact for right now. Let's keep it there. 90-29, coached 123 all-PSAC East players, 6 of the top 10 seasons in total offense and program history. First coach in conference history to beat every team in the conference. Did that in 2018, 2021, 2023, 2024 AFCA Division II Region 1 Regional Coach of the Year, 2018, 19, 21, 23, 24 Division NCAA playoffs, winning record in each of the 10 seasons. God dang. And the crazy thing is I just read kind of something similar here at another stop, at your previous stop. So obviously you are doing a phenomenal job on the part that everybody counts. But as we mentioned, just the impact you're having on all these young people, man, that's unbelievable. And so I want to ask you here, and you should have a good answer for this because you're a 5-time AFCA Regional Coach of the Year winner, but you won it again this year. What does that mean to you for an award that's voted on by your peers, by other people in the profession that just look over there and they see the job you're doing at KU?
It's awesome. It's unbelievable. It's a lot of respect. It's a lot of it means a ton to do it at the Division III level and then Division II level. Is at two different places. I'm fortunate, right?
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good people, good coaches, good players, good things will happen. And it means a lot when I'm respected by the coaches in our region. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, Coach. Well, hey, man, I appreciate the time. I probably could have went on for another hour with you here with some of the stories and some of the stuff that I know you've seen over the years. But I do appreciate the time that you spent with us, and I hope to get to bump into you there in Charlotte in 26 at the convention. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, Visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.